Two quick video clips I want to show you, which really underscores the true political climate that we're experiencing in our culture today. I got a little excerpt from this debate, and then I'm going to show you the hypocrisy of these politicians and how their duplicity and their sinister tactics is dividing and destroying this country in ways that we hadn't seen since its inception. And so they're constantly ignoring their role in the January 6th riots. You know, the Democrats were very much complicit in sowing the seeds which led to the riots that we saw on Capitol Hill in 2020. But when you have the media running cover for you and they're not willing to expose your contributions to the demise of this country, it's easy to deceive many who aren't as discerning or politically aware as the rest of us. So without further ado, let's get into this video clip, and you're just going to see the hypocrisy of these politicians and all of the seeds that they're sowing.
Censorship is book banning. We've seen that. We've seen that brought up. I just think for everyone tonight, and I'm going to thank Senator Vance, I think this is the conversation they want to hear. And I think there's a lot of agreement. This is one that we are miles apart on. This was a threat to our democracy in a way that we had not seen. And it manifested itself because of Donald Trump's inability to say. He is still saying he didn't lose the election. I would just ask that. Did he lose the 2020 election?
Tim, I'm focused on the future. Did Kamala Harris censor Americans from speaking their mind in the wake of the 2020 COVID situation?
That is a damning non-answer.
It's a damning non-answer for you to not talk about censorship. Obviously, Donald Trump and I think that there were problems in 2020. We've talked about it. I'm happy to talk about it further. But you guys attack us for not believing in democracy. The most sacred right under the United States democracy is the First Amendment. You yourself have said there's no First Amendment right to misinformation. Kamala Harris wants to use the power of government and big tech to silence people from speaking their minds. That is a threat to democracy that will long outlive this present political moment. I would like Democrats and Republicans to both reject censorship. Let's pursue.
Now, it amazes me how there's so many people that aren't troubled by the Democratic Party openly telling the American people that we're going to monitor certain types of speech. But we can trust them to only monitor the speech that's not good for us. They're going to be the deciding factor on what to suppress and what to allow. I don't think the founding fathers envisioned that when they crafted our Constitution. And so a lot of Americans need to be more vigilant, and we need to wake up so that we can see what's actually going on in this country. And that was just a little sidebar. This next video clip, I just want to show you the hypocrisy of these politicians and the seeds that were sown by the Democratic oligarchy that set the stage for what transpired on January 6th.
You can run the best campaign, you can even become the nominee, and you can have the election stolen from you.
How can you win with Russian interference, though?
That's a real thing.
That's what I'm scared about in 2020.
But rightly.
Because I think he's an illegitimate president that didn't really win. So how do you fight against that in 2020?
You are absolutely right.
He's an illegitimate president in my mind.
Would you be my vice presidential candidate? Folks, look, I absolutely agree.
Trump didn't actually win the election in 2016. He lost the election, and he was put into office because the Russians interfered.
Russia interfered with our election, attacked our democracy for the sole purpose of artificially placing someone at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. They were successful.
Trump knows he's an illegitimate president.
The president or elect, although legally elected, is not legitimate.
I don't see this president-elect
as a legitimate president.
You said you believe that Russia's interference altered the outcome of the election.
I do. We have a president who, if in fact it is proven, has been assisted by the Russians and may in fact not be a legitimate president.
The one thing that Trump is fearful of when it comes to his being president is that finally we will see how illegitimate his victory actually was.
I have an objection.
I object to the 15 votes from the state of North Carolina. I object because people are horrified.
He's an illegitimate president.
Our election was hijacked. There is no question. Congress has a duty to hashtag protect our democracy and hashtag follow the facts.
John Lewis is completely right. There is a cloud of illegitimacy around the election of Donald Trump. The Russians interfered with his election. James Comey and the FBI interfered with his election. The fake news industry interfered with his election.
Trump knows he's an illegitimate president who got illegitimate foreign help.
Do you believe Trump is a legitimate president?
What I believe is that there's no question that the outcome of this election was affected by the Russian interference.
There absolutely is a cloud of illegitimacy.
So that legitimacy is in question, yes.
So that was a very tainted election, and in that sense, it's illegitimate.
Why do you think the president is going to such great lengths to essentially prove that he beat you?
Because he knows he didn't. He knows he's an illegitimate president.
Stolen emails, stolen election. Welcome to the world of unprecedented Trump.
So do you believe President Trump is an illegitimate president?
Based on what I just said, which I can't retract.
He tweeted in February 2018, quote, "The more we learn about the 2016 election, the more illegitimate it becomes. America deserves to know whether we have a fake president in the Oval Office."
The Russian attempt to have the election, and frankly, the FBI is weighing in on the election, I think makes his election illegitimate.
There was a widespread understanding that this election was not on the level. We still don't know what really happened, Isaac. I mean, there's just a lot that I think will be revealed, history will discover, but you don't win by 3 million votes and have all this other shenanigan stuff going on and not come away with an idea like, whoa, something's not right here.
Seems to me that there's a cloud of illegitimacy that continues to hang over 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.
The outcome of the election was affected by their interference, and now we need to know, to what degree, if any, the Trump campaign was actually in collusion with with Russia.
He knows he's an illegitimate president. So of course he's obsessed with me, and I believe that it's a guilty conscience.
We actually won the last presidential election, folks. They stole the last presidential election.
If Al Gore won that election, I think he won it anyway.
Actually, I think I carried Florida.
Al Gore won the election nationwide and also in Florida, but the Supreme Court ruled the other way.
Al Gore got more votes, but not enough to stay out of the Supreme Court, where President Bush was elected 5-4.
Bush versus Gore. A court took away a presidency.
If all the votes were counted in Florida, that Al Gore would be president today and George Bush would be back in office.
I come from Florida, where you and others participated in what I call the United States coup d'etat.
In 2013, according to reports, Vice President Joe Biden, he claimed that Al Gore was the one who was elected president. And he claimed that the recount result was, quote, a bad decision.
And never forget, dear friends, what they did in Florida to Al Gore and me, to all of us, to older Americans, to African Americans, to Haitian Americans, denied the right to vote and have those votes counted.
I do believe that the projections were right in the first place at 7 o'clock when they called it for Gore.
Let me tell you something. Without a doubt, George Bush did not carry Florida, and it was not close.
There's no question that you won the state of Florida.
Oh, thank you, Charles.
No, it's a question. That's a question.
We will never know because the votes weren't counted. But
did, in your judgment...
No, I mean, that's a fact. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
And there is no other way of saying it but be very blunt. Al Gore won the state of Florida in 2000, and we should never forget it.
Most Americans, or a great many Americans, don't have confidence that the election of 2000 was fair.
But I don't believe we lost. I believe we just failed to have all of the votes counted.
The Supreme Court elected the president.
2004, yes.
Al Gore won the state of Florida in 2000, although not the presidency.
We know we won this election. They know we won this election. And Americans know we won this election.
I know some people want you to believe that the Gore campaign was a campaign that wasn't able to complete its mission. We did. Had all of those votes been counted in Florida, I think Al Gore would be president today.
We had more votes. We won, and we are never going to let the United States Supreme Court choose the President of the United States again.
You should know by now, based on the fact that he lost the popular vote by more than 500,000 voters, and we don't know how many he lost in Florida.
There's no doubt in my mind that Al Gore was elected president.
I rise to object to the fraudulent 25 Florida electoral votes.
Really, we won the election in 2000, but they stole the election.
I must object because of the overwhelming evidence of official misconduct, deliberate fraud, and an attempt to suppress voter turnout.
Enron had already helped the Bush team with such favors as ferrying their rent-a-mob to Florida in 2000 to permanently halt the counting of legally cast ballots.
It is signed by myself on behalf of my diverse constituents and the millions of Americans who have been disenfranchised by Florida's inaccurate vote count.
The Supreme Court, not the people of the United States, decided this election.
Speaking to a Democratic group in Chicago Tuesday, he made it clear he thinks Al Gore was the winner.
By the time it was over, our candidate had won the popular vote, and the only way they could win the election was to stop the voting in Florida.
Catherine Harris, Jeb Bush, Jim Baker, and the Supreme Court hadn't tampered with the results, Al Gore would be president.
I think that the issue before us today is not who won or should have won the 2000 presidential election. That issue has been settled, not to my belief, but it has been settled.
Let's just drop the vice. President Gore, that's what it is. Al Gore should have been President of the United States.
Al Gore made it possible for George Bush to be the only appointed president in the history of these United States.
Democrats have won the past 3 presidential elections. In 2000, unions turned out 25% of the vote, and Al Gore won.
But the Supreme Court tampered? That's a large charge. The Supreme Court stopped the counting of the votes, and if they'd let the count go on, Al Gore would have got the necessary votes.
The Supreme Court selected George W. Bush as the president. He was not elected.
There is overwhelming evidence that George W. Bush did not win this election.
What I observed as a voter, as a citizen of Illinois 4 years ago, were troubling evidence of the fact that not every vote was being counted.
I don't think that George W. Bush won the election in 2000 against Al Gore, because I think he probably lost Florida and also that nationwide.
If you invite me back on this show in about 8 weeks, I think you're going to learn that Al Gore actually did get all the votes there.
I felt what happened in Florida was a carefully worked out conspiracy. That many things could not go wrong in one state without there having been a conspiracy. And many different things did go wrong. Many tricks were pulled of various kinds.
The vice president did win, but and I do believe that the majority of voters that intended to go to polls last year wanted to vote and cast their votes for Al Gore. I do believe that in terms of Florida as well.
The court has been thwarting formation of the popular will, the most spectacular example being Bush versus Gore, where the majority, by a 5-4 vote, enjoined the counting of more than 100,000 ballots in Florida and essentially gave America its first court-appointed president.
Even though Al Gore won the election, he won't take office.
That election was stolen from the rightful winner. So, Mr. Speaker, I'm here today to talk about a stolen presidential election.
I think in 2000, everybody thought, well, he did win the election, Al Gore.
He started dividing America here in Florida by trying to take an election that I think any reasonable person would say he hadn't actually won.
What happened in Florida will go down in history as a coup d'etat.
Could we conclude, is it possible that
there was a conspiracy and Florida officials were involved in the conspiracy. Never have so many things gone so wrong in one place before. How did all these things happen all at the same time in the same state? And is not it possible that there was a conspiracy that was very well organized? Why were the state police out there on that day, election day, checking license plates and so forth? You know, how did all these things happen in one state at one time in one election? Is it possible that we ought to use the word conspiracy and not be afraid of it?
And I sure wish Gore was president right now. He should be.
Well, he actually got elected.
Well, good.
A battle that by the will of the people should have ended in victory. But tens of thousands of Florida votes either were not counted or tossed out in the 2000 presidential election.
5 Supreme Court justices trumped the votes of 51 million Americans.